Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fiction genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episodes of 12 Monkeys. Like I've been doing for the past 2 weeks, do know that this is me talking about all 3 episodes that aired this week. So do note, I'm going to try and talk about them in order, but do know I probably will bounce around a little bit here and there. So do not go into this, listening to this, if you have not watched all 3 episodes, because, I'll spoil things for you. So want to kind of get that right out there. But honestly, phenomenal episodes. Oh my god, each episode gets these little twists and turns. Obviously, I'm gonna break everything down bit by bit. The first episode, it was so beautifully done how they made the comparisons between Hannah and Emma. I didn't even cross my mind. I was like, man, I would not have even thought about that. Both kind of taken from their mothers for different situations. Hannah was taken from her mother for the purpose of saving her life, because it meant that, also ensured that Jones ended up creating time travel, and then Emma was meant to help complete Titan. It's like both similar and different at the same time. Hannah was sent to the past basically to see the world she's fighting for, essentially the world that she didn't really get to know. And then you have Emma, who grew up in that world, coming to the desolate future, and it's just kind of like their daughters are supposed to serve their mothers, essentially. It's kind of the line that's kind of played, and it's just like, I thought that was so beautifully done, making the comparison between the two of them, and obviously making the comparisons between the two mothers. You have very opposite sides of the spectrum in that situation. So, side note, is it me? Maybe it's not the same actress. I kind of feel like it is. Maybe it's not. I won't say it, because I won't say anything, because I thought it was the same actress who played, wasn't her name Seth on Killjoy? She's like the latest person to join the team last season. I thought that was the same actress. Maybe it's not. Nevertheless. Okay, so a lot of the stuff that broke down in this episode is the whole Olivia and Katarina situation. She's trying to get inside of Jones' head, because Jones kind of won't help her any other way, trying to track down the weapon and stuff like that. And I thought that was so interestingly done. I love how they made it kind of seem like, oh man, Cole showed up. Even I was like, oh my god. I was like, is that Cole? Is that like present day Cole? Did Adler fix the machine that fast? I was like, last time we saw, wasn't he? I was like, oh, I was like, this has to be future asshole Cole. But then the moment he was kind of like, oh, we got to leave Deacon behind again, essentially. It's like he hesitated and was like, no, well, Deacon can handle on his own. I'm like, what? I was like, that's a little weird. And then she's like blacking out, and they're like, oh, it's just part of her sickness and stuff like that, and her losing time like that. I'm like, wait, what? I was like, oh, it's all in her head. And it's like, yeah, because Olivia was trying to trick her. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. But I think because of the way Jones' mind worked, it didn't let Olivia kind of get a full latch into her mind like she normally would have anyone else, like she did with Cassie in the past. Like she couldn't, because of the condition. Well, for one, Jones has got her mind moving constantly all over the place to kind of keep Olivia from getting what she wants. Plus she's sick too, so her mind's not, so it's probably not the easiest thing. So her mind's probably jumping around. So Olivia tried to compensate for it, but it wasn't like a perfect fusion. That's why things didn't fit right. Because even Hannah being back there and everything, I was like, okay, what's up with this? I'm here to help you with a weapon and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, that's not what so. She tried to use it on her, but it didn't work. But then you have Jones getting inside of Olivia's head. And I thought that was beautifully done, represented too, because we see Olivia as a little girl, then Olivia as an adult, and then her, dressed as a witness. And it's like, with all that, Olivia is still that scared little girl. Like, that's what this is all about. Because, she tries to pretend like it's all about, creating Red Force. So it's like, no, this is all about trying to stop them from getting a weapon that can destroy her. Because for her, this whole Red Force thing is just because she's afraid of being alone. It's even something Ethan said at the end. The reason why she will lose is because she is all alone in this. It's even something that, Emma had talked about this place. It's like you have all these people clinging to their past, wanting to live in their memories. It's kind of what the whole Red Forest is for these people. But for her, it's an escape from the loneliness, that kind of just emptiness that will be her by herself, And I thought that was so beautiful, because you can see that she doesn't care about other people's situation. This is all about protecting herself. Why Titan needs to be fixed and stuff like that, because it's the only thing that could shield her from the weapon that's kind of being implemented and stuff like that. So, but we ended up finding out also, at the same time, Hannah is actually in 2009. I was like, the moment the date 2009 came up, I was like, I was like, how? that wouldn't be around the time Cole was born, was it? I was like, is it? I was like, that's supposed to be around the time. I was like, at least in my head, I was thinking at the time, but I'm like, in retrospect, it's like, no, because Cole's younger than that. But I was like, what was that? Because her mom had her live there for years, like I said, to understand like what they were fighting for, and she tried to live a life there, but obviously it's not the world she grew up in. She met that dude Brian, things were good and nice, but then kind of like who she was, what she came from in the future, kind of came in, and it, and she kind of got back to her mission. Because I think for a second there was a part of her thinking maybe I could just let this go and just kind of live here for now. But it's like, no, like who she was kind of bubbled back to the surface. So she got back to her mission. And it's like, oh, tracking down Marion, because it turns out Marion was actually killed in an alleyway. It's like, holy crap. Goes to track her down. Lo and behold, who the hell is he? Freaking Emma. I was like, what? I was like, that's the twist I did not see coming. I was like, oh my God. So I was like, that makes Olivia Cole's grandmother. That's weird. It's like all this back and forth between you two, and you've been so connected you didn't even realize it. It's like, oh my God. I was like, that's crazy. She's his mom. I was like, that changes everything. Like, it's just like, holy shit, that was the craziest thing ever to me. I was like, oh man, that could play part of the story. Like when Olivia finds out, it's like, oh, Cole is her grandson. I was like, well, what would that do? Would that make her change anything? She'd still be trying to kill her grandson because he's trying to destroy her. Like, it's kind of like, I was like, oh man, this whole family situation is super messed up. I just thought that was just kind of a beautiful, amazing. I was like, oh my God, that's crazy, dude. I lost my shit when that got revealed, dude. Because it's so interesting because, like, it's sad because, like, when it came to Emma, like I said, Emma was kind of brought into this whole situation for the sole purpose. She infiltrated other people's lives, never actually had a life of her own. It's kind of interesting, once again, the comparisons between her and Hannah. Like, Hannah kind of grew up with the daughters and stuff like that, so she never had a life of her own. She kind of got a chance to live one. So, but when given the opportunity to, because Emma tried to live up to her mom's expectation, but it's like, because Olivia looks at her as nothing more than a tool, a means to an end. Like I said, it's like, it's all about protecting her, making sure her legacy gets put into place there, the Red Forest. So she kind of doesn't really think much of her daughter. Like, she's even threatening, like pushing, like got her leaning over the edge, kind of like calling me mother. It's almost like, you're weak for calling me that. Like, the fact is, I didn't work so hard for you to get up here, for you just to fall all this way down. It's like, get the job done, which is kind of like you're treating your daughter like shit. And you see the way, like, and that messed up thing she did when she got inside of Jones's head. It's like, oh, killing Hannah over and over to break her. And you can see Emma watching it from the outside, like how distraught like Jones was. And for her, it's like she loves her daughter, and Emma's like, she never had that, so she wanted to kill herself, but she didn't. So she ends up leaving. She actually goes to 2009, and so it's like, oh crap, what? That's crazy, So it's just kind of interesting. But then it turns out Jones actually planned that herself. I was like, you are crafty, because she needed them to go, needed Olivia to think that she was winning, travel to 1491 so that Team Splinter can know exactly where to pinpoint her at. I thought it was kind of pretty neat. I also love that at the same time, there's the whole situation with Jennifer too, because Jennifer was I thought it was kind of a sweet moment. Like, Cole was kind of like, no, we need to do this. Like, there's no time. You got to make this mission count. But Jennifer was like, no, I'm the seer in this situation. And you always kind of go where I tell you. It's like, this time you follow me. And then like Cole hugs her. They had it, like, kind of hug him. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. She's like, follow me. Like, it's like, if anyone's going to leap first, it's going to be me, to make sure everything's okay. But then Jennifer disappears. They can't track her. And lo and behold, who shows up at a place? I was like, and this older Jennifer, I was like, oh my God, how did this happen? I was like, I don't understand. And then she's like, yeah, you forgot it's 2043. And I was like, I don't get what she's saying. It took me a minute or two, and then it clicked. I was like, right, they're in their past. I was like, right, they're in 2043 again. I completely forgot. This is Jennifer, like, but because remember, like, timeline wise, this is roughly around the beginning of the series, at least roughly speaking. It might be some days, weeks, maybe a few months. Well, probably at least maybe a couple days later, I would assume, after last week's episode. But I would assume it's been that much of a time. I'm like, of course. So Jennifer's still alive in 2043 and everything. I was like, oh my God, that's so good. That was done so well. Well, in actuality, she dies in 2044, doesn't she? I completely forgot about that. It's actually 2044, not 2043 that she dies. I'm completely my fault. But I was like, that was so beautifully done. I was like, wait, what? How are you here? It's like, oh, that's why I did. I was like, that's so good. And this Jennifer, obviously, because of the whole primary thing, knows what younger Jennifer knows. So now with all of this, they decide that they're going to go to 1491, obviously moving into the next episode with all of this. Poor Jennifer kind of being treated like a witch and everything. Luckily, Cole and Cassie showed up and she's just so happy. She's like, I love the fact that she made a Zelda reference. She's like, Kakariko Village when she gets there. I'm like, wait, I was like, wait, what? I was like, at first I didn't get it, and then she sells Zelda afterwards. I was like, you were making a Zelda reference? Holy crap. I love that later on she made a reference to God, I forgot what the exact line was, but she was making, I guess, Lord of the Rings or Hobbit reference. And then Deacons was like, that's some, like, Tolkien shit, right? He's like, yeah, never, I forgot what he said. He kind of disparaged it and just being like, it's kind of crap or whatever. And then Jennifer's like, what the fuck? What? Kind of, like, so disappointed look in her face. I thought that was kind of pretty neat. But going through it all, kind of, I love how they executed that episode too, because it's like taking what we got at the beginning in the season premiere, that opening, and they shifted everything. Like I've talked about it in the past, like how the show does things. It shows you one thing, but secretly, because of time travel, you don't realize this whole thing was happening over here. Because I thought the person in armor, it didn't really cross my mind to think that that was Olivia. I was thinking more so like, no, that's most likely like, oh yeah, the witness, like, oh, this whole 12 monkey thing goes even further back. I thought that was someone else dressed like that way back then. Didn't cross my mind to think that that was actually Olivia. So it's actually interesting too, because it turns out the guy that's leading the charge, that dude is actually a primary himself. Like he started all this because he's a primary against other primaries. I guess it's kind of like a self-hatred type of thing. He thinks of himself as an abomination, so he's trying to hunt down all the other abominations like himself. Because obviously it's during that time where it's like, oh, witches and seers and just kind of all that's kind of like demonic and stuff that needs to be taken care of. So that's why he's kind of help hunting his own. Like I said, it's just interesting you get that other perspective. But I even love the seers being like, you think, oh, the sad thing is, Olivia, you're not important. The only one that's important here is James Cole. You kind of mean nothing. You're just alone. You're just kind of a lonely demon, essentially, and I was like, oh god, like sticking it deep, the dagger deeper. But it's kind of interesting, the whole burning them was more so that she could get the primary dude that's on her side to get inside of their heads, because it's hard to keep your mind focused and block while you're burning alive. So, and then at the same time, they met the girl Cora, who ends up being a primary. We meet her dad, who's played by Ben Cross, who is, the thing I know him best from is like, isn't his name Rabbit from Banshee? He's Anna / Carrie's dad. If you've ever seen Banshee, that will mean something to you, but if you haven't, oh well. But I saw his name, I was like, isn't that who I think it is? Turns out it totally is. So they all kind of find their way to each other. Deacon shows up. I love that every time Deacon shows up, Jennifer gets super happy. It's interesting when you actually think about it too, especially their complicated history. It's also, he's apologized about it in the past where it's like, yeah, sorry for killing you. But they've got to become buddies and stuff like that. What I thought was so interesting, though, is like both Deacon and 2043 Jennifer knew something was up because their nose kept bleeding, so they knew that things were changing. Like, because I think like when he was in Titan, like he got a nosebleed and he saw something in the knife, and I think he knew what was coming. And so he ended up giving the knife to Jennifer. He's like, yeah, I'm going to want that back. It's like, and so I thought that was such a sweet moment. Like, I like that kind of budding friendship between the both of them. And I love the reveal where it turns out like, oh yeah, what actually the weapon actually is a machine built way back then. It's like how you went about, I mean, to be fair, this machine was built over a very long time. Like we're going way back. Primaries have always had this vision of James Cole coming back to use the weapon to end all of this. And it turns out to be a machine, which is crazy to think about. It turns out that the key they have is already there. So the whole point was to create a paradox to activate it. So what I think is interesting, I guess maybe it means absolutely nothing. I guess it's just kind of like because of the paradox, their time got accelerated. Maybe that means something. Maybe it doesn't seem like it means anything right now. But like obviously Cassie's hair turns a bit white. It's like maybe that turns into something. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. It happened to the other dude too. So like I said, I guess because the paradox going off, them trying to go to it at the same time, they touched it. It just accelerated their time in particular part of them. I guess because of what's going through their system. Because paradoxes, I guess, don't fully affect them because of what Jones gives them that lets them splinter. Paradoxes don't affect them like they would everyone else. So maybe that's just because it wasn't fully enough in her system that it led to that, or maybe because they touched it at the same time, it kind of equally distributed. So I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm just curious of like what that is. Like, maybe that turns into something later on. Who knows? But it does lead to like a heart-wrenching moment where Deacon gets executed. But he says that powerful thing he calls Olivia out so she would go after him first instead of Cole, because he knew it was going to probably most likely come down to that. And she's like, "Oh, you gave up all you could have been," but for him, it's like, I did it for them. He's like, and I do it again. And it's like, Deacon! It's so crazy because it's even like him and Cole had that, like I said, the combination of the knife thing with Jennifer and his talk with Cole. It's like, you know what makes you so different from the rest of us, Cole? What makes you just the chosen one is because you have Cassie. Like, what you two have is something no one else can have. Like, the fact of the matter is, kind of talk about how special it is. And even Cole's like, why the hell are you, where's that coming from all of a sudden? You getting all sentimental like that and stuff like that. Because I guess it's because Deacon knew the end was coming, and it's like, he didn't have that himself. He kind of wanted things like that between him and Cassie, but it's like, no, there was never going to be Deacon and Cassie. There was always going to be Cassie and Cole, so... Maybe that's one way of looking at it. Maybe it's that point of just kind of like, yeah, all the regrets you ever had in your life leading up to this moment. But if it means kind of making sure that things, doing whatever he can to make sure that because that was always the thing last season too, because Olivia kind of points it out this episode of like, yeah, the fact of the matter is you never had a part to play in all of this. The fact of the matter is that you played the part I needed you to play. Like, obviously eventually getting to where they are right now, him being her bloodhound and stuff like that. That's the role he was supposed to, because remember, that was his big thing last season, being super pissed because he didn't have a role to play, because it's just kind of like he was kind of left out of the grand design and stuff like that. But now it's kind of like, now, I guess in a weird way, we kind of know why, because later on, like, they paradox that place and wipe Deacon from existence along with the weapon. So that's most likely why Deacon was never a part of anything, because everything would eventually led to him kind of getting to that point and being erased from history. But it's like, wouldn't that erase him from every other point in history? But it's like, no, he gets to that point in history so that he is erased. So I guess it keeps the rest of his timeline, at least for now, still intact. Maybe it's slowly unraveling because of the whole paradox thing, but like that, which is like, because that's something that they were talking about, like, oh, maybe that's what the machine is for. It's like, oh, the machine is for the purpose of, it's like, oh, what's worse than death is what Cassie said. And then for Cole, it's like, yeah, never being made, like being undone, like erased from history. That's the worst thing than death, never existing in the first place. So, which I think in that sense kind of hit Cassie, because it made her think about like where they are, like so much of everything and who they are and everything that they've been through together, themselves being a thing would be undone. Because that's what started it all too, because for Cassie, she was like, yeah, like the fact of the matter is she doesn't want to lose them, but if Cole is going, they go. If one goes, they both go. They're in this together, so... But luckily, Adler was able to send them the vest, and Cole kicks some serious ass, got Jones and Cassie out. And then I love Jennifer being like, hey, asshole, meet future asshole. Cole pops up and kills that dude. So no more primary on her side. So he's kind of been removed from the equation. But like I said, no going back to that point in time to save Deacon or get the weapon again. So that came like, oh man, everything was just shattered in that moment. And then the twists and turns continue on so many levels. First of all, like, I'm curious what it is in particular 2043 Jennifer was talking about. She's like, yeah, she had to go do something. But she talks about the fact is that present Jennifer has to, get started on an egg. Like, everything that's in her head. Like, obviously, once again, it is what I thought. It's like, she was shut off from being a primary simply because it would have meant that Olivia would have been able to look in her head. So they kind of blinded her for a while, but she's still full on primary. So she ends up drawing all these symbols that are connected to the ones she drew last season. And it turns out it's all in a spiral. Like, obviously their all over the place. They're just all over the place. But initially when she drew them as a spiral, you start from the center, then you work your way back. It turns out it's a whole bunch of dates and stuff in there. In particular, every jump that they've ever made. But there's one that they never made in 2018, which is actually the point where the virus is actually released. They go back to try and stop it. Lo and behold, obviously turn of events turns out, oh, actually they're the ones that initiated the virus. It's like, oh my God, what? So basically they've literally been on this adventure trying to stop themselves from ever happening, for stopping themselves from creating the problem that there exists to stop, It's actually kind of interesting too, because it's like, we haven't dealt with a virus in a while, because the last time we dealt with the virus directly was season 2, to my recollection. Like, that was the last time we really dealt with it. It's kind of interesting that obviously at the end here, it would circle back around, because it's like, well, we get rid of that. We make sure Olivia never came to be, kind of erase all of this. But it's like, no, they need things to happen because Olivia's machine is already done. Titan's already done. And it's so fascinating. It's not just about punching a hole in the space and time. The whole point is to basically spread across all of time and space and create paradoxes every moment, every minute, every second, every hour, stacked upon itself, creating small paradoxes, which all happen all at once, creating the greatest paradox that's ever existed, creating the Red Forest all across time and space, which I thought was like, I like that they broke it down and explained it like that even more, rather than just being all this, like, I love that that's how it's explained, how the paradox, like how this one big paradox happened, because it's technically multitude of paradoxes happening all across time and space simultaneously. It's crazy when you actually think about it. But they learned about this from Hannah, who's been here for 9 years. And because I thought it was so interesting when she kept like not referring to James' mom. It's like, oh, your mom's real name. She was Marion. She actually came from Titan and everything. I was like, yeah, but you're leaving out the good old fact that his mom is Olivia. I was like, oh, because basically they crashed because obviously Olivia's people caught up to them. They ended up meeting James' dad, and it's like, oh man, oh man. It's like, wow, that kind of happened. But then I was like wondering, like, why didn't she leave out? I guess it would complicate things if you knew the truth, but it turns out, nope, because all along, Hannah was her mom, was his mom. I was like, they did it again. You already got me with the Emma and Olivia thing, and you twisted around on me. You're like, oh, actually, Hannah's his mom. And it's like, oh my God. Because sadly, Emma died. It's so sad too, because Emma was like, oh, I'm going to be a mom. Because, she was happy, because for her, it's like, it's something that Hannah was telling her that, hey, like, you don't destroy time, you get to save it, you're the child, you're the mother of James Cole, who ends up kind of trying to fix everything. And I guess also because it's sad, because for Emma, it's like, oh, I'll be a better mom than my own mom, but she never got the chance. She died. And it's just kind of like, I guess you could make the argument by her being there, she helped lead Hannah, fate/destiny, whatever you want to call it, causality. But it's like, holy shit, that is crazy. Which in fact means, which is a much better thing. And it's like, that's why they're so heavily tied together, Cole and Jones. That's his grandmother, unbeknownst to her. So that's why she's probably not even realizing it. Like, because Cole didn't think he had any family left besides Ramsey. And it's just like, oh, it turns out, like, because he never really got to know his mom. His dad died, and like, he kills his brother, and now it's like, holy crap, like, my grandma's right here in front of me. And sadly, his mom dies in his arm, because he was going to give her what she needed to get back home, but she didn't go home. She went to the airport to make sure that he survived. She took the bullets from him and dies in his arms. And it's like, dude, that is the saddest thing ever. Because even Jones figured it out at the last second, because they're like, yeah, okay, so what would this have to do with, like, what about James' mom? It's like, how would she know all of this anyway? It's like, unless she was a time traveler. And then it got pieced all together in Jones's head, like, what this was all about. And I was like, dude, that sucks. Like, and at the end of it all, his family kind of pieces itself together just to lose his mom like that. Finally got to know, I mean, he actually got to know her a little bit, which is crazy. And it's something that comes up in the episode. It's like, he went back in time, saved his, because of causality and stuff like that. It isn't just about saving Hannah to make sure that Jones creates time travel. It's also to make sure that she grows up to eventually give birth to you. And it's like, it's so much stacked upon itself. This show is so fucking good. Like, with that. like I said, twists and turns always keeps you guessing. Like, I don't think anyone saw that coming. Because, like I said, everyone, like, any people who've, like, thought of stuff, like, I never had, like, everyone's always been like, oh, it must be Jennifer. Jennifer must be his mom or something. I was like, no, it turns out that is not the case. I never would have guessed the whole Emma situation. But then it's like, nope, double bluff because it's actually Hannah. That is crazy. I guarantee you if you go back, maybe there's some potential hints. It might be a situation where they never actually knew until this season who they were going to make his mom be. It might be one of those things, it's always one of those things you want to know, like, how much did they know ahead of time? It's like, did they already have in their head, like, oh, this is who it's going to be? I doubt it, because I'm sure that they're unfolding the story themselves. Like, they kind of have probably a rough idea going forward with each season, but they probably don't have, like, all the finer details. Probably have some of them, but not all of them. So it's probably not until this season that they wrote it, like, okay, we're going to make it so that his mom is actually Hannah. I was like, oh, that's good. Because one, that also brings him and Jones even closer. Because it turns out, like, obviously, using the code, because Jennifer had pointed it out, it's like, okay, if we were just supposed to go back and stop the virus, like, why give us all these other dates? Why not just give us that one day? Why, like, all these other numbers? And then it turns out, putting in the code from the primaries, you go to every point in time Cole has been to, not just the machine taking anyone back to, but the particular points in time that Cole has, because this has to do all with Cole. Because that's what I was wondering, is that what the machine was supposed to be? Like, obviously the machine might take you to the beginning, it might take you to the end. The machine back in 1491 that the primaries built, I was thinking immediately, it's like, is that machine meant to scatter Cole to every point in history? I thought that's what that was supposed to be, kind of making him the witness in a sense. That's the only way to, like, I thought that was kind of like the point. Like, if you're familiar with The Flash, like, it's kind of like what Savitar was trying to do in season 3 of The Flash. Like, if you haven't watched The Flash, that doesn't mean jack dilly squat to you, but I thought that was kind of ways, like, scatter himself to every point in time. I thought that's what was going to be, like, the thing. See, which I kind of got right in my thought process, but it turns out the whole point is that Cole himself is a Jinn, kind of this loop that can't break. By untangling it, they realize, like, he's the focal point in all of this. He has to be erased from time to make sure that all of this happens. Because Cole kind of says it at the end of the episode. He's the demon. Which is like, holy crap, Cole was meant to slay the demon. It turns out the demon was him all along. I guess the serpent that was eating its tail the entire time was actually him. At least that's how I'm viewing it and what that kind of seems to me, which is so sad. The story, like, it's kind of sad because Hannah kind of explained everything, like, oh, this is a love story between her and Cole's dad. Like, she's like, I stayed to protect him, knowing that eventually maybe they'd come after him, him being Cole's dad and everything. But it's also that, but also because she, legitimately fell in love with him. Like, there was multiple times she said she thought about leaving because she knew what the future held and everything. But it's also like, no, like, he gave her reason to stay. So it's that sad situation of, like, was it fate? Is it destiny? Who cares? All that kind of aside, she fell in love with a man and he fell in love with her. Actually, she's the one that actually gave him what he eventually would kind of be his saying of, like, hey, the only failure is giving up. Which is kind of his thing, which he kind of gave to Cole, which is interesting because, like, future 2043 Jennifer had talked about that. She's kind of like, oh, the right ending is the one you choose. I've always said that. But then Cole was like, yeah, but you stole that from somebody, because the person she stole it from actually was from Cole. And she's like, well, it doesn't matter where. Essentially, obviously not what she said exactly. I'm paraphrasing, but basically it was like, it's still good advice. Whether or not I got it, it doesn't matter. I'm still saying it. I've always said it. So it's still good advice to kind of keep in mind. So it's just kind of interesting that these sayings kind of got how they got created. So I think it's ingenious, And it's that sad moment. They go back to 2017, Jones and Cole, and they talk to Hannah and give her that choice. But for her, it's like, she was like, I was there when your dad died. I was there when you met your brother. And I will be there at that airport in 2018, because it's like, she would do whatever she can to protect her son. She always has. But even though she left, she always kept an eye out. She kept an eye out on Jones too, because she popped in from time to time and saw, like, oh, this is what Jones is doing. Like, Jones is there with younger me. And it's like, it's kind of sad because for Jones too, it's like, if we do this, like, all this moment, this would never have happened. Like, our happy family, like, we're a complicated situation, but here with my daughter and my grandson, that, it's like, we won't have this moment for Cole. It's like, we have time. So at least one more minute of just being there with each other, it's just sad that things kind of played out this way. You know, it's just kind of like one loss after another and just this whole cycle of things. And now the red storm is creeping closer as the red forest is closing in. Because at the same time of all of this, you also have Cassie being so conflicted. Obviously, like, you know, remembering what Tallman's dad said to her, as well as what Tallman himself is saying about basically like, oh, if she wants to, she can win this, but it all comes down to what she wants. But the thing is, Cassie loves Cole, and basically it would undo everything, like especially with where things are now, him being the demon, it would mean wiping him from history. It wouldn't just mean undoing all that they've ever done, it would mean undoing him, making it so that he never existed. And I'm not sure that's something Cassie could stand. Like, even if it's for the greater good, she doesn't want to lose Cole, but for everyone, it's like, this is that moment, and like basically Cole will have to be undone to save and stop everything. Because the only way to stop something that was technically never started and end something that never, to start something that never actually was, and to end something that never technically started. Like, obviously, like, Olivia kind of exists outside of that bubble of causality and stuff like that. She's kind of like beyond that now a little bit. But by doing this gin, by unbinding chains to everything, it all starts with Cole and it all ends with Cole, which is just kind of sad. Which you thought things were going to end one way because you knew it was always going to end. Like, you know, what Cole said of like, yeah, everything being undone, sure, but not to this extent of him being wiped out. Like, I don't, like, it's going to be interesting to see what Cassie does in the end, because she loves him and I don't think she's going to be willing to let him go. So, you know, it's like, did she drop the vial because it's like, okay, we got to make sure that time, like, was it for the purposes of like doing what they came there to do, activate the virus, kill 7 billion, the 7 billion they promised to save, just to end up having them, you know, stop all of this and save them in the long run anyway. But it's also things you got to think about too. It's like, let's not forget Cassie still has to go back to it's now 2018 when she dies, where the virus, because she dies initially in 2017, but I can't remember if her time, like, did they ever explain when she dies again, when they eventually do get the message? Like, obviously her, you know, her message and the watch in 2043, like, was that moved up to like 2020 or 2019? Maybe. I don't remember them ever explaining like when exactly she died. Like, initially she dies in 2017, but now the timeline's changed. So there's still that thing of like her going back to where she is and ultimately dying. Because she talked about being there with all the adventures her and Cole have been on. There's the whole thing about future asshole. Like, we haven't really gotten to that yet either. So there's so much riding on this. And I'm so curious to see how it finally all plays out. Like I said, it has been wild and crazy ride that has led us to the conclusion, because next week is the 2-part series finale, and I have no idea how this is all going to play out, like what exactly is going to go down. I'm so fascinated to see. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.